Okay, and we're live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this month's webinar brought to you by Candy Box Marketing, and a topic that I think might be the center of attention for the last 2-3 months. We've been hearing a lot about threads, and we've been doing a deep dive research, and I gotta tell you, I'm really excited to talk about all our findings leading up into the big day. And my take on threads today, knowing that this webinar has been pushed back the last few times, comes with a lot of excitement because I think our opinion and our findings of where threads is at today is very, very different from maybe what it would have been like if you asked me about it in the month of July. And we're going to be sharing a lot of great case studies and examples today to walk you through what this app is all about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, before we do a deep dive, I want to just start with getting everyone comfortable with the Zoom settings and tools that we have here. I want to encourage you to use the chat bar, the chat toolbar that you see here on the webinar to keep the conversation going. There's going to be a few areas throughout this presentation where I'm going to be asking you to use the chat. And I'd love for you to let's do a test round here and just jump in chat really, really quickly. I see my friend Michael Mudo has already asked the burning question of the day, which is, where are you tuning in from today? Please use the chat in the toolbar and let us know where you're tuning in from. Rachel, good to see you from Oakville. Wendy, great to see you. Ritu, Kelly, someone in from Ottawa, that's fantastic. It's so good to see many of you. Definitely a lot of names here that we recognize today. And really excited that you could be joining us as well. The other toolbar feature that I want to make you aware of is the Q&A feature that also comes with the Zoom settings. We're going to be opening up the platform near the end of the webinar to take on as many questions as we can in this hour. So for any questions that you have, please use the Q&A feature and submit your questions, and myself and Mike will be tackling down as many questions as we can in that hour, whether it's threads related, whether it's social media, digital marketing related. We're here for you today, and we're going to spend as much time answering these questions as we can. So going into who we are for some of the individuals that haven't heard of Candy Box Marketing, I want to just start by introducing the host of this incredible webinar today, which is Candy Box Marketing, where our mission is to make marketing sweet. Marketing made sweet is our mission. And for every single thing that we look into, our goal is to figure out how you can maximize these tools and capabilities for your business. And the number one question, before you go ahead and submit it in Q&A, let me just jump the gun and answer it. Yes, we do have candy. And yes, we're very much available to supply that to you at our headquarters in Oakville, Ontario. We did the grand opening in our newest space in Oakville in the month of November, and it's a beautiful space. And if you haven't had the chance to visit, we want to encourage you to come by and take a tour. We'd love to walk you through and leave you with some candy to take back with you. More than anything else, just excited about being able to have a space where that is filled with collaboration, multimedia content, and an opportunity to work alongside our team. Our team today is well above 40 team members that works out of our 2 offices. And this is a mindset that we very much use in our agency that I want to really encourage for today's webinar, which is good vibes only, okay? Good vibes only in today's webinar. I feed off your energy in the chat and Q&A, and I want to encourage you to use that as much as you can. But let's have some fun talking about what I think is also a very, very fun application. Quick background about myself. I'm the Senior Brand Strategist at Candy Box Marketing. I've been with Candy Box for the last 12 years. And along the way, I've also published 2 books in the world of branding. And it's a great opportunity for me to consistently pull out learnings that I've seen in not only the agency world, but with a lot of the businesses that we've worked with. So when I come out here and share case studies and some great examples, it's very exciting to be able to do that in a real-time environment. And my goal today is to take those real-time information and share that with you today. Above all else, I have to admit that it's a little hard to talk about threads because my first social media love was on an application called Twitter, now known as X. Before I jumped on any social media platform many, many years ago, I've always been an avid Twitter user. I've lost many, many nights of sleep utilizing Twitter to just be in the know and participate in conversations and jump in as many Twitter chats as we can. And somewhere along the way, I've left Twitter to move into the world of Instagram. And the number one reason I made that move was more so to do with the ability to use direct messaging features in ways that Twitter simply could not do. But somewhere along the way, I've missed Twitter quite a bit. I go back in once in a while, and every time I seem to go into Twitter, it seems to welcome me back by reminding me that I cheated on Twitter. Okay, I walked away from Twitter many years ago, and I tried to come back, and it welcomes me home by calling me a cheater. And today, I'm talking about its direct enemy, which I think is going to be a difficult conversation to have. Now, today I'm here in the Oakville studio space, and behind me is the Candy Box marketing space that I just shared with you in the visual gallery in my previous slides. But usually, my Zoom backgrounds look a lot like this. It says digital marketing that actually works, and it happens to be the background that Mike is using today as well. And we need to hold ourselves accountable when we say statements like digital marketing that actually works, because what it also requires us to do is to be very transparent about what is working and also transparent of what we believe is not working. And our goal is to make sure that the information we share with you every single time we deep dive into an important topic and a trending topic like Threads, our job is not to just hype it up because it exists in the world of social media, but more so to be very honest about what's working and what's not working. So this is what the lay of the land is going to look like. I'm going to make it as simple as possible in today's webinar. My objective is simply to focus on all things Threads, specifically for business. I'm going to start by giving you the direct brass tacks, the breakdown. For some of you that have no idea what's going on and might be experiencing a certain level of FOMO, some of you may be having your bosses asking you about what it is and you want to go back and tell them about it. I'm going to break that all down for you in the first section. And then I'm going to share with you the very honest, good, the bad, and the strategy. What's working, what's not working, and how do I think you can navigate based on the data that we've collected today. So let's start with what Thread is really about. We woke up one morning in the first week of July and we were surprised by a grand announcement, a very, very trending and loud announcement that Meta has released a brand new app called Threads. And it built so much anticipation and excitement around the app that people just lined up to jump right in and figure out what it is. And without any strategy, instantly it started picking up a lot of traction. What we learned as soon as we hopped in and spent some time on it is that Threads just happened to be another text-based conversation platform. So although it gives you the capacity to utilize features like photography and video to dress up your platform, this is very much driven by conversations and very text-heavy. And if I may be blunt, let's just say it how it is. It truly is just, Mark Zuckerberg's chokehold on Twitter today. His right hook swing at taking down Elon Musk's mammoth of an application on Twitter. And essentially, the more time we spent on it, it's become very evident to us that Threads was built as Twitter's evil clone, and more so as a competitor to take Twitter down. And this has become a very much studied scenario to see who's going to win between the launch of Threads and Twitter working alongside each other. The last feature that's worth highlighting that was quite prominent in our early experience utilizing Threads was how easy Threads has made it to integrate your Instagram account directly into Threads. As a matter of fact, by the time you load up Threads, it has already pulled in all the work that you've done on Instagram directly into Threads. Your profile picture, your username, your bio, even the followers that you have that are already on Threads. What you might have found is that if you've been building your Instagram account thus far, it actually carried over a lot of that work for you so that you start off on day one not necessarily with 0 followers. You start seeing those followers come in right away because it instantly matches you with the Instagram followers that you've collected. So it's made it very, very easy to get started and not feel like you're starting over again. This resulted in something that we've never seen in the history of social media. This is truly an earned name and an earned statement when they say that it was the world's best adoption strategy. This was specifically the rise of Threads. As soon as Threads launched, in the first hour, they've generated over 1 million users. And this was immediately, as soon as it launched, this data was collected. And this was ultimately the fastest growth we've ever seen on a social media platform in the first hour, where they hit 1 million users in 1 hour. And it didn't stop there. They instantly generated 10 million users in the first 7 hours since launch. Once again, never been done in the history. And this is the first time I'm going to take a look at the chat to get you a little bit active. But I want to just quiz the room here and get your thoughts on who you think number 2 is. So if Threads is number 1 of the fastest growing platform in 1 hour, what is your guess for the second fastest growing platform? Thomas guesses Instagram. Wendy, TikTok. Yep. Another vote for TikTok. A lot of popularity around TikTok. Snapchat is another great guess. And there's definitely some conversation around the growth of Snapchat as well. But here it is. Here is your number 2 fastest growing platform that ever existed and was just recently taken over by Threads. Number 2 was ChatGPT. I know I cheated. I didn't tell you it was a non-social media platform, so that's not your fault. But ChatGPT was the second most generated app or the most user-generated app in the history of the planet, and it was just recently dethroned by Threads. But look at the significance in how fast Threads grew. You know, ChatGPT came in rolling, and in 5 days, which is incredible, in 5 days they generated 1 million users, but Threads was able to achieve that in 1 single hour. When ChatGPT did it in 40 days with 10 million users, Threads did it in 7 hours. So there is no doubt that there was a major conversation happening. And in case you were wondering if your guess even made the top 5, this is what the top 5 looks like. Followed by Clubhouse, Instagram, I know there was some vote for Instagram there, and Spotify, who jumped in. And if you're a nerd like me and you really want to know the top 10, this is what the top 10 looks like. And the one that surprised me the most was Dropbox. You know, Dropbox doesn't get enough love for how quickly it rose through the ranks. But look at that, directly under Spotify, it sits at number 6 as the fastest growing user-generated platform. So it was incredible. Yeah, Thomas, I forgot about Clubhouse too until I saw it there. And believe me, you're not alone. A lot of people forgot about Clubhouse. And this was a good reminder that somewhere in this world it still exists. And, you know, it didn't stop there. We saw 100 million users in 4 days. So when you thought the 7-hour goal was pretty impressive, imagine getting 100 million users and it hasn't even become the end of the week yet. There was no doubt that there was something special happening in this space. And there was a lot of attention. A lot of media outlets picked it up. A lot of our phones in Candybox was ringing with questions about what do we do with this information? And it was our job to really do a deep dive and report back to you. So we've been spending quite a bit of time taking a look at it. And then the final part that's worth noting, at the peak of their prime, at that 100 million user in 4 days prime, they actively had 50 million users a day that were using the platform. So not only was the growth impressive, the fact that half their users were logging in every single day was a substantial stat and really spoke to the opportunity that was available. Now, where the story continues, as much as I wish it continued on this incredible trajectory, it is also worth noting that although Threads currently holds the best adoption strategy in the history of applications, it also got noted as one of the poorest retention strategy in the game. And there's a lot that happened here, and we're going to dive into why we think happened here. But just taking a look at this Threads Google Trend screenshot that I just took in preparation of today's webinar, it was impressive to see how quickly that decline happened. Let me share some stats with you that's worth noting here. You know, number one, we saw, you know, I shared this incredible stat that in day 4, they've generated 100 million users. The sad part is, in day 60, so we're talking 56 days later, they've only generated an additional 30 million users. And they started to really spotlight how much of a decline they were seeing immediately after that first week's excitement. If I may go a step further, when we first started at the prime of 50 million daily users, we're now finding today, and when I say today, I really mean today, like we're looking at the stats of the early September numbers, there's only 10.3 million daily users today. So they're only getting about 1/5 of the activity that they were at the peak of Threads. And the final one noting, which I have to say was the most disappointing, is that the average individual that is on this app, those 10.3 million daily users, are only spending about 3 minutes on Threads. And in case you're wondering what that looks in this battle between Twitter and Threads, here's what Twitter looks like. they're generating, so when Threads is generating 10.3 million daily users, Twitter is generating an astounding 237 million daily users. And while Threads is having users on for about 3 minutes, Twitter is 7 times more activity, with the average user spending about 21 minutes. So if you're wondering, after Mark Zuckerberg came in with the right hook in how Elon Musk is feeling, I think it's fair to say that this visual is probably very, very accurate to how Elon responded when he saw what the next 60 days look like after an incredible growth. So the question you may be wondering, based on the exciting rise and the very disappointing fall, is it even worth continuing on with Threads? Is it even worth spending time on this webinar to look into it? Well, let me share some thoughts with you as an agency. You know, we looked into this, and I put my strategist hat on, and I spent some time taking a look at what the opportunities may be in this very strange circumstance that we've just never seen with the platform before. Allow me to put some ideas in front of you. First and foremost, it is worth noting one of my favorite lines said by none other than Kobe Bryant is, "Job's not finished." You know, we're only about 60-something days in. And as a matter of fact, if you spend time on Threads, you know, if you're one of those individuals spending 3 minutes a day on Threads, you're going to note that their team is heavily invested in asking questions from the users of today and understanding what is it that they need, what is it that they want in order to stay more active. And as you can see here, their very own, the head of Instagram is here asking questions, and he's very prominent about the fact that, hey, if you're not using it as frequently as you might, what is the feedback? You know, what is the feedback? And as you can see, there was 1,900 replies when I took the screenshot 7 hours after the message. I imagine there's significant amount more happening. And this is a screenshot that I took at 5 p.m. yesterday. So this is how active they are in updating the platform to accommodate it for businesses and for individuals to use every day. So they're still rolling out features every single day. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, they rolled out a feature that was very, very much demanded by the public. So they've been actively listening and actively responding to make sure that they take advantage of what an incredible platform that this can truly be. So it was worth noting that there's still a lot of changes happening, and it also made me feel optimistic about the fact that if you didn't participate in the rush, the gold rush of Threads in the first 60 days, you haven't missed out just yet. There's still an opportunity for you to ride the second wave, which I imagine will be a lot more beneficial for businesses. The second idea worth noting is the mindset of being a bigger fish in a smaller pond. You know, you think about all the other platforms out there and the mega activity that they have. It's easy for you to sit in a boardroom and talk about the fact that, hey, maybe we should spend more time where a lot of the activity is happening today. As I mentioned, Twitter has 237 million active users every single day. It's easy to build up that as a strategy. But what's worth noting that Threads is probably doing better than any other platform is that it is allowing you to truly live as a big fish in a smaller pond. They still have 10 million users. They still have 10 million users logging in every single day. And although this doesn't show up in the stat metrics, a lot of the people that are logging in aren't just your average individuals. These are typically thought leaders and individuals that are looking to share ideas, and typically news outlets and others that are participating for a bigger vision. So for you to be part of that conversation and stand out in a crowd because you're not sharing the space with a lot of other noisemakers, you really have the ability to get the attention for a lot of individuals that maybe was hard to get attention from before. This was one of the main reasons why I transitioned away from Twitter into Instagram. It was the realization that Twitter made it very difficult back then in order to get into the devices of people that just didn't know about us. You know, they made it very difficult to get into the direct messages of people that weren't following you back. When I realized that Instagram allows you to use their features and at least vibrate the phone of someone that's never heard of you, even if they're not following you, I thought that to be a tremendous opportunity. So imagine being able to do that, not just on Instagram, but now being able to do that in a much smaller pond where you can reach what was once known as the unreachable. You know, this was a day that I got very, very excited. And I got very excited simply because, ex-Toronto Raptors champion Serge Ibaka gave me this. That's all he did. And I got so pumped that I left my computer and told my wife about it. And I said, it's kind of a big deal. And it got really exciting because it made me realize that people that never would have seen my messages in the past, you now have the opportunity after this share any piece of content for you to immediately respond back to them and get some type of an interaction going. And although this interaction was small, it also resulted in many, many more future conversations along with many, many other people. So this got me excited about what kind of opportunity is out there. Can Twitter do the same? Absolutely. But imagine being a bigger fish in a smaller pond where there's less people responding back every single time he's putting out a piece of content. The other part that's also worth noting is the integration of Instagram. And I really, really want to highlight this because I have a hunch that there's going to be a very big play in the way that this Instagram integration is done. Right now, you have the ability to duplicate your efforts. So if you've been doing well on Instagram and you've been seeing a lot of growth, it felt really good to hop onto Threads and realize that you don't have to start over. A lot of that work is carrying over. But what if the work that you're doing in Threads is also carrying over in Instagram? What if this integration means that a lot of the heavy lifting that you're doing on either platform allows you to grow both the platforms, and in this massive ecosphere of Instagram, you're actually able to get better reach. As a matter of fact, I was just chatting with Mike an hour before this webinar, and I was sharing what I was going to share in today's webinar, and Mike already highlighted a feature that I was unaware of, which is the fact that Instagram feed for some of you are actually starting to show thread messages. It's actually starting to show up on your feed. And it gave me this realization that, you know what, that hunch that I did have, I think it's already starting to come true, where if you're putting out something that is getting a lot of eyeballs and a lot of interaction on Threads, it is now starting to reappear on Instagram reach. I have a hunch that if you're not participating in Threads, you're going to find yourself not winning well on Instagram in the future. So I think this is one of the best reasons that I've seen in why it may be worth spending some extra time taking a look at Threads and building a platform there. So to answer your question, do I believe in Threads? Am I thready or not? My response to that would be to not write it off just yet. My response of that is to not delete the app just yet, but to spend a little bit of time crafting your brand and navigating through the waters of what is a very, very small pond that still has an incredible amount of opportunity. And what I'm going to share with you in these few slides is the strategy that I would use and that we're currently using today in order to really get the most value from our Threads experience. And I'm going to break it down into 3 simple steps that if you just focus on this in your time on Threads, whether you're part of that 3 minutes per day today, or whether you become a more active and heavy user, this strategy will allow you to maximize not only the growth and the value that you get from Threads, but the opportunities that it could generate for your business. The first step I'm going to encourage, as someone that's been in the world of branding for a very long time and has always talked about the importance of having your authentic voice, there has never been a better time to let that voice shine. And if you haven't sat down with your team, or if you haven't sat down as a leadership team and talked about what is the brand voice all about, this is a great time for you to really put it to test and see what kind of traction that you can build through repeated consistency. And what that looks like, I like proposing this in a bit more of a different type of environment, is I want you to think about your brand in a social setting. It could be a party, it could be it could be an open park, it could be an environment where you're just in a public social setting. And imagine in that same room you are surrounded by your competitors. Think of those competitors that are always in the back of your mind every single time you're constructing a new strategy. I want you to think about if your brand was a human being in that party, who are you in that party? Are you the one that is the fun person in that party? Is your brand the one that is caring, the one that's really listening? Is it the one that's motivating others? Is it the one that's blunt and direct? There's many other characteristics that can be tied with that. But I want you to think about who are you in a room of competitors? And the more authentic, unique, and consistent you are with your brand voice, what you're going to find very, very quickly is that your brand just happens to stand out in a crowd significantly better than those brands that maybe doesn't have a consistent voice. If they sound like everyone else and you're the only one that has a fresh approach, is it hard to believe that you may get a bit more spotlight than the others in the room? So it's worth thinking about what does your brand sound like and what is that voice? And this Threads application is a great opportunity to let it shine and to really show up with that consistent voice. So you can see some examples here. We have Wendy's here that shows up with their fun, silly type of vibe that we've seen in a lot of their marketing. They call threads threats. They said share all your favorite threats so far. So really just getting a little bit edgy. If you're a fan of the creepy show You on Netflix, and you understand the plot, you'll very much understand why Netflix showed up and said, a word from our resident expert in moving to a new place to start fresh. And as you can see, Duolingo even found their brand voice when they recognized that their mascot is a bird, and they started off their experience by saying, does Elon have a thing for birds, or should I be scared? And everyone kind of showed up in their unique way and instantly started getting a lot of traction. We've been seeing a lot of influencers and publications that are spotlighting brands. Usually comes down to the fact that they showed up in their own unique way. This is an opportunity, whether you're B2B or B2C, to figure out what is that voice that you want to show up with, because the more unique you make your voice, the more authentic you become, and the more consistent you become, the easier it is for your audience to have a relationship with your brand. Even if your mascot and icon is a bird, it's still very evident that the person that's sending out this message is very capable of building a relationship with their customers. Step 2, my recommendation is to become a first responder. And what I mean by first responder is to not lose sight of when the word social media gets used. I want to highlight and underline and do whatever I can to put the spotlight on the word social. Because what it means to be social means to follow a format where you're not just going out there for the sake of putting out content, but you're following a strategy that allows you to interact with people and be the person that you would be if you were in a social setting, as once again, showing up as a human being first. Now, this framework that I'm going to share with you, I have to credit our CEO, Daryl Keyser. When I joined Candybox 12 years ago, it's interesting. 12 years ago, I saw Daryl share this in a talk once upon a time. And what's been really, really exciting is the fact that even 12 years later, this framework stands to be very true, because it doesn't matter what platform you're on. This social framework is something that exists in every single platform, as this is the fundamentals of mastering social media. And the focus on this is, first and foremost, adjusting your content strategy. We've been on social media long enough to know that there is that one annoying friend on Facebook that every single time you're on feed, they're always promoting something. They're always telling you to buy their product. They're always telling you to attend their meetings. And very, very quickly, you get annoyed and you want to unfriend them. And very much we see this on a lot of social media platforms, where every single time we log on Instagram, that one company is pushing down product messages, and it becomes very difficult to feel like you have a social interaction with them. So what I want to encourage you is that every single time you put out a piece of content, the only objective when you put out that piece of content should be start a conversation. And if you think what that looks like, it is less about buy my product, and it's more about asking questions or interacting with others or jumping into their threads and starting an interaction so that there's a little bit more of a conversation happening, rather than you waiting for people to click a link and buy your product. So my encouragement is to change the way you approach your content strategy, especially on a platform like Threads, where the content that you're putting out there is more about starting a conversation than getting someone to take action by clicking on a link. The next step is that the reason you're participating in this conversation, if I may quote Kobe Bryant one more time, once you put out content, job's not finished. It's not over. You don't move on to the next content. The next step in your challenge should be to participate in these conversations. And the reason that you're doing that is for one of the biggest reasons to win on social media, which is to develop a relationship with your audience. The more time you spend in conversations, the more you're building a relationship with that audience member, the more likely they're able to take action at a future objective whenever it is eventually a link that you share or an event that you share or you're hiring someone. There's more activity that's happening as a result of the fact that they have a relationship with this. And this isn't really hard to believe when you think about how often you might have visited a restaurant or watched a movie in a theater because someone that you have a relationship with has recommended that place. This is very much similar based on the fact that you've built a relationship with your audience. It's very, very easy to drive the fourth and most important goal. As a business, a lot of conversations that we often see that happens is people wonder, how do I put content to drive revenue. And although there's opportunities with a compelling offer to achieve that, what I want to encourage you is to play the long game, to really invest in the social media strategy of creating relationships through great conversations and then developing those relationships in a way where the revenue actually comes easy as a result of the fact that you've built a very, very strong audience base around you. And the final step that I want to share with you, and I would say probably the most important part, is to show up consistently. Because Threads is very much driven and built on relationships and conversations, it's very hard to automate conversations. You might be able to automate content, but it's very hard to automate conversations. And this is actually a big reason for why I would say a lot of businesses quit, is because they realize it actually takes time. It actually takes showing up. It actually takes effort to participate in the conversations every day. And I would say that although for some businesses, they strayed away from it, it opens up an incredible opportunity for you with you being maybe one of the only few businesses in your industry that is actually participating and showing up, so that there isn't really anyone else in your space that's playing this game or showing up consistently. One of the big reasons to show up consistently as well is that you never really know when an opportunity will be available. A lot of it has to do with timing. You might have opened the app at the exact moment that someone was looking to buy your service. You might have opened the app at the exact time that there was maybe a contest happening and you participated and you just happened to win. My personal experience happened to be with this individual, and you might know him a bit more now than maybe I knew a few years ago, because he's getting a lot of media exposure. His name is Rob Lawless, and he put himself out on a mission about 6 years ago where he said, I'm going to meet 10,000 people one-on-one, and I'm going to spend 1 hour each with them, and I'm going to post their story on social media. And he started getting invited to a lot of TV shows and a lot of news networks to talk about this initiative. And he's done such a substantial job. I think he's at about 8,000 now, so he's getting close to that 10,000. But I remember seeing Rob a long time ago on Instagram, and I sent him a message way back in 2018 with the hopes of being one of those stories. You know, I reached out to him. I realized that on his bio, he identifies where he is at the moment. You know, in this example, he was in Philadelphia. So I reached out and I said, hey, you know, are you coming to Toronto anytime soon? I'd love to meet, because I really liked his initiative. And, you know, he turned it down almost immediately. He said that he's not looking to come out to Toronto, and that was the end of it. You know, we moved on and we never talked again. And that was back in 2018, me thinking it's just really hard to reach him. Back then, Rob had only about 8,000 followers, and today he has about 44,000 followers. If it was hard to meet him before, it is incredibly hard to get on his radar today. And I realized that, and I just had no plans of connecting with him anytime soon. One day I decided to log on Threads, and I saw someone that I recognized on Threads due to Instagram's integration. And I saw that Rob posted on Threads saying, anyone free at 3 p.m. Eastern time to meet for my project? Reply if you're available. And I saw that he was now taking Zoom meetings because the world has changed over the last few years, and it's made it difficult for people to meet in person as much as he'd like to. So he started taking on Zoom meetings. I just happened to be one of the first people on when I saw that message, and I decided to take a stab. You know, it's been 2018 to 2023. What do I have to lose? So I messaged him back and I said, you want to connect from Toronto? He messaged back 20 minutes later saying, let's do it. I'll shoot you a DM on Instagram and let's coordinate it. And I said, I'll see you there. And we moved the conversation back to Instagram, very quickly laughed about the fact that we tried to do this in 2018, and we were glad that it finally happened. And then we ended up doing an incredible collaboration together that resulted in a feature on his Instagram about a great story conversation that we had. And as you can see, I was number 5,700 on his list. And it was just amazing to see that no matter how big his audience was on Instagram, and no matter how difficult it would have been to reach him, the fact that he was fresh on Threads, and the fact that I was a big fish in a smaller pond, I just had a lot more accessibility to his inbox, and it resulted in a great relationship that we've been collaborating on, and it just so happens that we're actually going to be working on a lot more projects on together as a result of that. So I leave you with this, and we'll open up the floor to any Q&A if there's any that came in. Just want to encourage you one more time that if you do have any questions about using Threads or any other social media tools that we talked about today, I encourage you to use the Q&A feature on Zoom, and Mike and I will tackle as many of them as we can. But my encouragement to you is this. If you haven't participated in Threads yet, or if you ran in on that gold rush in July and you decided to put it away, hey, I did too. I'm going to encourage you by saying that you're not late and you haven't been left behind. There is a plenty of opportunity for the second wave of new features coming in, new strategies that Threads is using to get you better reach. And once again, I truly believe that if you're not participating in Threads, even a lot of the efforts that are going into your Instagram strategy today may not be as effective when the rise of Threads really gets integrated. So my encouragement for you is to dip your feet, test out your brand voice, participate in conversations, and really allow yourself to get used to the platform so that when those opportunities do rise up, it's you that's in front of your customers and not your competitors. I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Love the dialogue happening in the chat. Love to see that Q&A section filled up. If you have any questions about anything we talked about or social media beyond, please do connect with us on our Candybox account. My friends, it's been an absolute pleasure connecting with every one of you. My name is Mahfuz Chowdhury. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.